A school uses shared iPads for students, allowing multiple students to use the same device. How does the file storage structure accommodate this use case? Select one answer. A. Each user shares the same data volume and sandbox. B. The system volume is deleted after each session. C. A separate data volume is created for each user. D. User data is stored on external flash drives. Correct answer. C. A separate data volume is created for each user. Now let's explain. To maintain separation between users on shared iPads, Apple uses a method where each user gets a separate data volume. This approach ensures that one student's files, settings, and app data are kept private and do not interfere with another's. In contrast, if each user shared the same volume, there would be a high risk of data leaks or accidental overwrites, making the device unsuitable for shared environments. Additionally, the system volume is not deleted after each session because it contains the operating system and essential configurations that must persist. Furthermore, iPads do not natively support storing user data on external flash drives, especially in managed educational deployments. So, to support multiple users securely and efficiently, shared iPads rely on creating separate data volumes for each individual. A user in China is required to enter a +86 phone number when creating an Apple account. What is the purpose of this requirement? Select one answer. A. To enable FaceTime in restricted regions. B. To comply with local verification regulations. C. To link the number to a third-party payment app. D. To enable biometric login. Correct answer B. To comply with local verification regulations. Now let's explain. This requirement exists because Apple must adhere to local laws in China that mandate user identity verification using a valid local phone number. Requiring a +86 number ensures the account is linked to a verifiable identity, aligning with those legal regulations. On the other hand, enabling FaceTime in restricted regions is managed through broader regional settings and is not directly tied to phone number input. Similarly, linking the number to a third-party payment app is not Apple's concern during account creation. Payment apps use separate verification methods. Lastly, enabling biometric login is a device-level configuration, like setting up Face ID or Touch ID, and does not depend on what phone number you enter while setting up your Apple ID. So the only reason for the +86 number is compliance with local verification rules. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. Jamf Pro can erase all content and settings on a device remotely. True automatic updates require the device to be unlocked and connected to cellular data. False. The Erase All Content and Settings feature installs a new operating system. False. The Settings app opens directly to the General section by default. True. Now let's explain. First, Jamf Pro can indeed erase all content and settings on a device remotely. Admins can send a wipe command from the Jamf Pro dashboard, which triggers the device to reset without physical interaction. Next, it is false that automatic updates require only a cellular connection. They actually depend on more conditions, including a Wi-Fi connection that the device is charging, locked, and powered on. So cellular data alone is not sufficient. Moving on, the Erase All Content and Settings feature does not install a new operating system. It simply clears user data and settings while keeping the existing OS version intact. Lastly, it is true that when you open the Settings app, it defaults to the General section, giving users immediate access to core configuration options like About, Software Update, and more. Each of these answers ties directly into how Apple devices behave under administrative control and user settings. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. The users directory contains personal files and preferences for each user on the Mac. True, a user can access and modify files in another user's directory by default. False. The shared directory allows all users on the Mac to access its contents. True. Modifying the system directory is necessary for installing third-party apps. False. Now let's explain. The users directory is designed to give each user their own space, which includes personal files, desktop items, and settings. This structure helps maintain privacy and organization across multiple user accounts. By default, users are restricted from accessing or changing another user's folder. This is a core part of macOS permissions and helps protect user data from accidental or unauthorized changes. The shared directory is a special folder within the users directory that provides a collaborative space accessible to everyone on the Mac. For example, files placed here by one user can be opened and edited by another user. Finally, installing third-party apps does not require modifying the system directory. Instead, these apps are installed in the data volume, keeping the core operating system secure and untouched. Altogether, these statements reflect how macOS balances user privacy, collaboration, and system integrity. What can be found in the VPN and device management section of the iPad settings app? Select one answer. A. Installed App Store configurations. B. Information about the current passcode. C. Mobile device management profiles. D. List of Wi-Fi networks. Correct answer, C. Mobile device management profiles. Now let's explain. The VPN and device management section is specifically designed to show profiles that configure VPN settings and mobile device management, or MDM, which is used by organizations to control settings and install apps remotely. Meanwhile, installed App Store configurations are managed in different parts of the system, often tied to Apple ID settings or restrictions, but not within this section. Additionally, information about the current passcode is stored under the Touch ID and Passcode or Face ID and Passcode settings, depending on the device. This is a separate area focused on device security rather than management. Lastly, Wi-Fi networks are found under their dedicated Wi-Fi section in Settings, where users connect, forget, or manage networks, and not in VPN and device management. So if you're looking for MDM profiles or VPN setups, that section is the right place to go. An IT support rep is remotely assisting a user who needs to check the exact macOS version on their Mac. Which instructions should the rep provide? Select one answer. A. Navigate to System Settings, General, About, and click the version number. B. Use Spotlight to open the App Store. C. Open Terminal and type macOS version. D. Click Display Settings, Software. Correct answer. A. Navigate to System Settings, General, About, and click the version number. Now let's explain. To check the exact macOS version, the most accurate and user-friendly method is to go to System Settings, then select General, and choose About. From there, clicking the version number reveals more detailed information, including the build number. Using Spotlight to open the App Store won't help because the App Store does not provide operating system version details. It's focused on apps and updates, not system information. Likewise, typing macOS version in terminal is incorrect because that's not a recognized command in macOS. It would return an error, leading to confusion. Lastly, display settings relate to screen resolution and display configurations and are completely unrelated to viewing the macOS version. So, guiding users to System Settings, General, About is the most straightforward and reliable method. In macOS 10.1.15 or later, which APFS volumes are hidden by default? Select three answers. A. Preboot. B. VM. C. Recovery. D. User. Correct answers. A. Preboot. B. VM. C. Recovery. Now let's explain. The preboot volume is hidden because it stores essential boot-related files that the system uses to launch macOS securely. This volume is not intended for user access or interaction. The VM volume, which stands for virtual memory, is also hidden by default. It is used to manage encrypted swap files that temporarily hold memory data when RAM is full, ensuring privacy and performance. Recovery is another hidden volume designed to support Recovery OS. It allows users or admins to troubleshoot or reinstall macOS without needing to access the main data volume. On the other hand, the user volume remains visible because it stores personal files and settings, and users interact with it regularly during normal use. So in summary, preboot, VM, and recovery are system managed and hidden, while user remains visible. An admin is troubleshooting why a user can't see another user's files. What is likely causing this behavior? Select one answer. A. System integrity protection. B. Disk utility restrictions. C. User-specific access controls within the user's directory. D. Lack of Spotlight indexing. Correct answer. C. User-specific access controls within the user's directory. Now let's explain. On macOS, each user has a personal folder within the user's directory, and user-specific access controls are in place to ensure privacy and data protection. These permissions mean that one user cannot view or modify another user's files by default. Meanwhile, system integrity protection is focused on protecting system files and processes, not user data or home folders. So while it's a powerful security feature, it does not apply here. Disk utility is a tool for managing drives and volumes, but it does not control file-level access between users. Therefore, it wouldn't restrict one user from seeing another's files. Lastly, Spotlight indexing impacts the searchability of files, not the permission to view them. So even if a file isn't indexed, it could still be accessible if permissions allow it. So the root cause of this issue is the user-specific permission set within the user's directory. What is Stage Manager used for on iPad? Select one answer. A. Organizing multiple apps and switching between them. B. Recording your screen, locking the iPad after inactivity. D. Backing up photos to iCloud. Correct answer. A. Organizing multiple apps and switching between them. Now let's explain. Stage Manager is a multitasking feature that helps iPad users manage and interact with multiple apps at once. It allows you to resize windows, stack them, and quickly switch between app sets, making it ideal for productivity and creative workflows. In contrast, screen recording is handled through a different built-in tool found in the Control Center, not through Stage Manager. Similarly, locking the iPad after a period of inactivity falls under general security settings like auto lock, which you can configure in display and brightness. And finally, backing up photos to iCloud is managed through iCloud Photos in the device's Apple ID settings, unrelated to how apps are managed on screen. So Stage Manager's role is all about app organization and seamless multitasking. Which of the following is true about shared iPad temporary sessions? Select two answers. A. They do not require a password to log in. B. All user data is erased after logout. C. They allow access to messages and App Store. D. They support assigning purchased books. Correct answers. A. They do not require a password to log in. B. All user data is erased after logout. Now let's explain. Temporary sessions on shared iPads are designed for quick, one-time use. That means users can access the device without needing a password, making the process simple and efficient for environments like classrooms or training labs. In addition, all user data from a temporary session is automatically erased once the session ends. This ensures the next user starts with a clean slate and helps maintain both privacy and system performance. However, access to messages and the App Store is restricted in temporary sessions to avoid unauthorized use of services linked to a personal Apple ID. Similarly, assigning purchased books is not supported, since temporary sessions are not linked to any specific user's Apple account or data plan. So, the defining features of these sessions are their password-free access and automatic data erasure. What should a user do if they forget their password and haven't set up two-factor authentication? Select one answer. A. Create a new Apple account. B. Use a rescue email to recover access. C. Wait for Apple to reset it automatically. D. Use iTunes to reset the account. Correct answer. B. Use a rescue email to recover access. Now let's explain. When two-factor authentication hasn't been set up, Apple relies on a rescue email as the fallback for account recovery. This email is used to receive password reset instructions, allowing the user to regain access without losing their data. Creating a new Apple account is not recommended because it results in the loss of previous purchases, iCloud data, and subscriptions associated with the original account. Waiting for Apple to reset it automatically won't help either, as Apple does not intervene to reset Apple ID accounts unless specifically prompted by the user through the proper recovery process. Using iTunes is also incorrect because iTunes doesn't provide a way to reset Apple ID passwords. That function is handled entirely through Apple's account recovery system. So in this scenario, the rescue email is the proper path for regaining access to the account. Which file type is used by macOS to store application preferences? Select one answer. A.app. B. XMLC. .plist. D. Correct answer. C. .plist. Now let's explain. In macOS, application preferences are stored using property list files, which have the .plist extension. These files contain structured data in either XML or binary format and are commonly used to store user settings and app configurations. While .app files are essential, they refer to application bundles and not to settings or preferences. They package the executable along with resources like images and code. Although .plist files often use XML formatting, the actual file extension remains .plist, not .xml. So even if the contents look like XML, the system still expects and reads them as .plist. Lastly, .pd files are installer packages used to install software, not to retain user settings. So the correct and specific format for storing preferences on macOS is the .plist file. Which two platforms require all apps to be sandboxed? Select two answers: A, iOS, B, iPadOS, C, watchOS. Correct answers: A, iOS, B, iPadOS. Now let's explain. Both iOS and iPadOS enforce strict sandboxing for all applications. This means each app runs in its own isolated environment, which prevents it from accessing data or resources from other apps without permission. This design helps enhance privacy and security across Apple devices. In contrast, macOS supports sandboxing, but it is not required for all apps. Developers can distribute macOS applications outside the App Store, and those apps may not be sandboxed at all. As for watchOS, while many apps are sandboxed due to its foundation on iOS technologies, the lesson emphasized that mandatory sandboxing applies specifically to iOS and iPadOS. So if you're asked which platforms universally enforce sandboxing, the correct response is iOS and iPadOS. A Jamf Cloud administrator wants to securely send enrollment invitations without revealing their main admin email address. Which SMTP settings should they configure carefully? Select one answer. A, server and port. B, encryption protocol. C, sender email address. D, connection timeout. Correct answer, C, sender email address. Now let's explain. The sender email address is the detail that recipients actually see when they receive enrollment invitations. If the Jamf Cloud administrator uses their main admin email here, it becomes visible to all users. By configuring a separate or generic sender email, they can send messages securely while keeping their personal or privileged admin address hidden. Meanwhile, server and port settings are used to establish the technical connection for sending mail, but they don't influence what email address appears in the from field. The encryption protocol protects the content of the email during transmission, but does not mask or change the displayed sender. Connection timeout simply determines how long the system waits for a response before giving up the connection and has no impact on email visibility. So the sender email address is the one setting that directly controls what users see and must be configured carefully for privacy. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. The Users section of Jamf Pro is mainly used for volume distribution of app and book licenses. True, the Settings section includes configuration options like push certificates and device enrollment. True, account preferences and password changes are found under the notifications icon. False, the Resource Center offers documentation, community access, and Jamf Learning Hub. True, now let's explain. The Users section of Jamf Pro is indeed used for distributing app and book licenses on a per-user basis. This allows institutions to assign content to users across multiple devices, making the statement true. Next, the Settings section includes important configuration tools like push certificates and device enrollment options. These are found under the Global category and are essential for overall device management, so that's also true. However, account preferences and password changes are not found under the notifications icon. These options live under the account settings icon, which is specifically intended for managing user credentials and profile settings. Lastly, the Resource Center does offer access to documentation, Jamf Learning Hub, and the wider Jamf Nation community, making it a reliable source of support and training. Each of these statements helps reinforce how different parts of the Jamf Pro interface are structured and used. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. Jamf Pro alerts such as push certificate expiration are displayed in the notifications icon. True. The Resource Center is located in the top left corner of the Jamf Pro interface. False. Jamf Nation community is accessible via the Resource Center for Apple admins. True. Logging out of Jamf Pro can only be done by closing the browser window. False. Now let's explain. Jamf Pro uses the notifications icon to inform admins about important events like certificate expirations. These alerts help ensure that critical services remain active and avoid unexpected disruptions. The Resource Center, however, is not found in the top left corner. Instead, it is located in the bottom right of the Jamf Pro interface, where users can easily access documentation, support, and training materials. Jamf Nation, which is the largest online community for Apple administrators, is indeed accessible from the Resource Center. It provides a space for collaboration, questions, and learning among Jamf users. Lastly, logging out of Jamf Pro does not require closing the browser window. Users can properly sign out using the Account Settings icon, which ensures the session ends securely. Understanding these interface elements helps admins navigate Jamf Pro more efficiently and securely. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. A pre-stage enrollment can include both mobile devices and computers in a single configuration. False. The remote management screen in Setup Assistant appears only when a device is assigned to a pre-stage. True. Jamf Pro supports creating multiple pre-stage enrollments for different MDM configurations. True. If a device is wiped and re-enrolled, previously saved location data can be reused. True. Now let's explain. Pre-stage enrollments must be configured separately for mobile devices and computers. You cannot mix them in a single pre-stage configuration, which makes the first statement false. When a device is assigned to a pre-stage enrollment, Setup Assistant automatically includes the remote management screen during the setup process, which is why that statement is true. Jamf Pro allows administrators to create multiple pre-stage configurations, each tailored to different MDM needs, such as varying setup options or department-specific settings. So yes, multiple pre-stages are supported. Finally, if a device is wiped and re-enrolled, admins can choose to reuse the existing location information, allowing the system to maintain continuity in records. This makes the last statement true as well. Each of these reflects how Jamf Pro handles enrollment structure and configuration flexibility. A school issues iPads to teachers for remote instruction. The IT admin wants to ensure no personal Apple IDs are used to avoid syncing personal data to school devices. What should the admin do to enforce this policy? Select one answer. A. No action is needed. Users can be reminded verbally not to sign in. B. Restrict Apple ID sign-in using Jamf Pro. C. Use iCloud backup settings to disable personal accounts. D. Use Apple Classroom to supervise account activity. Correct answer, B. Restrict Apple ID sign-in using Jamf Pro. Now let's explain. To prevent teachers from signing in with their personal Apple IDs, the most reliable solution is to restrict Apple ID sign-in using Jamf Pro. This enforcement aligns with school policies and removes any chance of users syncing personal data to institutional devices. Simply reminding users verbally not to sign in isn't effective because it relies on individual compliance and provides no technical safeguard. Using iCloud backup settings does not stop Apple ID sign-in altogether. Those settings manage backup behavior but don't restrict account access. Likewise, Apple Classroom is intended for monitoring student device usage in a teaching context, not for enforcing sign-in restrictions. So, to enforce this policy securely and consistently, the administrator should apply the restriction directly through Jamf Pro. After adding their MDM server to Apple School Manager, an IT admin is unsure why their new devices haven't enrolled automatically. What might they have forgotten to do? Select one answer. A. Enable location services. B. Restart the Wi-Fi router. C. Update the devices to the latest iOS version. D. Assign devices to the MDM server. Correct answer, D. Assign devices to the MDM server. Now let's explain. In Apple School Manager, simply adding an MDM server isn't enough. Devices must also be explicitly assigned to that server for automatic enrollment to take place. If this step is skipped, the devices won't know where to enroll, and the process won't happen as expected. Enabling location services does not impact enrollment or assignment at all. It's used for geolocation features, not for device management. Restarting the Wi-Fi router may help with connectivity, but it doesn't affect whether the device is associated with the MDM. Updating to the latest iOS version can be helpful for feature compatibility, but it's not required for assigning devices to the MDM. So the most likely reason enrollment hasn't occurred is that the admin forgot to assign the devices to the MDM server. A technician at a university wants all newly enrolled macOS devices to be automatically bound to Active Directory during setup using a pre-stage enrollment workflow. What must they ensure when configuring the configuration profile? Select one answer. A. The directory binding must be added to a user-level configuration profile. B. The directory type is set to Open Directory/LDAP. C. The profile includes a general payload set to user-level distribution. D. The directory payload is added to a computer-level configuration profile. Correct answer, D. The directory payload is added to a computer-level configuration profile. Now let's explain. In order for Active Directory binding to work during pre-stage enrollment, the directory payload must be delivered as part of a computer-level configuration profile. This is because user-level profiles do not execute during the setup process, making them ineffective for tasks like directory binding. Option A is incorrect because user-level profiles are not suitable for this scenario. The binding process must occur at the system level during setup. Option B refers to a valid directory type, but the question is focused on configuration execution timing rather than directory type selection. Option C suggests a general payload with user-level distribution, which again wouldn't trigger directory binding during the setup phase. So the technician must ensure the directory payload is part of a computer-level configuration profile to successfully bind devices during pre-stage. An administrator attempts to look up purchasing information for a list of computers but gets incomplete results. What is the likely reason? Select one answer. A. The computers are not enrolled in Jamf Pro. B. The devices have not been inventoried. C. The SMTP server is not configured correctly. D. The GSX database does not contain complete purchasing information. Correct answer, D. The GSX database does not contain complete purchasing information. Now let's explain. When using Jamf Pro to query Apple's GSX database for purchasing information, the data returned is only as complete as the information stored in that database. If Apple's GSX records are missing certain purchase details, the lookup will return incomplete results, even if the devices are properly enrolled and inventoried. Option A is incorrect because GSX lookup is independent of whether the devices are enrolled in Jamf Pro. Enrollment affects management, not data retrieval from GSX. Option B is not the cause either, since inventory affects local device records but not GSX queries. Option C is unrelated. SMTP servers handle email delivery, not lookup functions, so this wouldn't influence GSX data retrieval. Therefore, the most likely reason is that the GSX database itself lacks complete purchasing information. An enterprise organization wants to distribute apps, manage devices, and assign books centrally. They already purchase all devices from Apple authorized resellers. What should they use to streamline this deployment? Select one answer. A. Apple Business Manager. B. Manual enrollment via configurator. C. Apple Push Notification Service. D. Self-service. Correct answer, A. Apple Business Manager. Now let's explain. Apple Business Manager is designed to support large organizations with centralized device management. It automates device enrollment, app and book assignment, and integrates directly with MDM systems. This makes it the best choice for streamlining deployment when devices are already purchased through authorized resellers. Manual enrollment via configurator is not efficient for large-scale rollouts since it requires physically connecting each device. Apple Push Notification Service is necessary for MDM command delivery, but it doesn't help with procurement or app assignment. Self-service is useful for letting users install approved apps, but it doesn't handle initial deployment or device setup. Therefore, Apple Business Manager is the comprehensive and automated solution needed in this scenario. What action allows an object to be tracked via a dashboard widget? Select one answer. A. Set a high priority level for the object. B. Add the object to a smart group. C. Select Show in Jamf Pro Dashboard when creating or editing the object. D. Export the object as a CSV. Correct answer, C. Select Show in Jamf Pro Dashboard when creating or editing the object. Now let's explain. Selecting Show in Jamf Pro Dashboard during object creation or editing directly adds that object to your dashboard as a widget, allowing real-time visibility and tracking. On the other hand, setting a high priority level helps flag the object internally but does not impact its presence on the dashboard. Similarly, adding the object to a smart group improves targeting and automation, yet it won't appear on the dashboard unless that setting is explicitly selected. Lastly, exporting the object as a CSV is useful for offline analysis but plays no role in dashboard visibility. Therefore, to track an object in the dashboard, you must choose the option to show it during its creation or edit process. An organization using Jamf Pro wants new hires to sign into their Macs using their company's Cloud IDP credentials during automated device enrollment. What must they configure? Select one answer. A. Enable single sign-on authentication in enrollment customization. B. Add a directory service authentication pane. C. Add an acceptable use policy pane. D. Enable remote management. The correct answer is A. Enable single sign-on authentication in enrollment customization. Now let's explain. To achieve cloud-based authentication during automated device enrollment, the organization must enable single sign-on authentication in the enrollment customization settings. This allows users to authenticate with their Cloud IDP credentials, such as those managed by Azure AD or Google Workspace, directly within Setup Assistant, streamlining the login process from the first boot. Meanwhile, adding a directory service authentication pane would only be applicable to on-premise directory environments, not cloud IDPs. Including an acceptable use policy pane is useful for presenting policy text, but it does not support authentication. Enabling remote management is a separate configuration step for managing the device, and it does not handle login credentials. So again, the only option that aligns with Cloud IDP integration during device setup is enabling single sign-on authentication in enrollment customization. An IT administrator wants to allow both profile-driven and account-driven enrollment for computers within their Jamf Pro environment. They also want members of a specific LDAP group to enroll devices using a URL. What steps must the admin take to fulfill these requirements? Select two answers. A. Enable both enrollment methods in the Computers tab. B. Select Enable User-Initiated Enrollment for mobile devices. C. Assign an LDAP group under the Access tab. D. Set a managed Apple account as required in global settings. The correct answers are A. Enable both enrollment methods in the Computers tab, and C. Assign an LDAP group under the Access tab. Now let's explain. To enable both enrollment workflows, profile-driven and account-driven for computers, the admin needs to activate both enrollment methods within the Computers tab. This makes both options available for macOS enrollment and gives flexibility depending on how the devices are set up. Next, restricting access to a specific LDAP group requires configuration under the Access tab. By assigning the group there, the admin ensures that only authorized users can enroll devices through the specified URL, keeping the environment secure and manageable. Meanwhile, the option to enable user-initiated enrollment for mobile devices is irrelevant to computers, so it doesn't apply here. Likewise, setting a managed Apple account is used for other scenarios like shared iPad, not for determining enrollment access for macOS via LDAP. So again, the admin must enable both enrollment methods for computers and assign the LDAP group in the Access tab to meet the requirements. What is the effect of selecting the Make MDM Profile Mandatory checkbox in pre-stage? Select one answer. A. The user can delay enrollment after Setup Assistant. B. The device will install the MDM profile before progressing in Setup Assistant. C. Enrollment will fail for devices not connected to power. D. It forces the user to connect to Ethernet. The correct answer is B. The device will install the MDM profile before progressing in Setup Assistant. Now let's explain. When the Make MDM Profile Mandatory checkbox is selected in a pre-stage configuration, it ensures that the device cannot proceed through Setup Assistant until the MDM profile has been successfully installed. This locks users into the enrollment process and guarantees that management settings are applied right from the beginning. Meanwhile, if you choose A, allowing the user to delay enrollment, that contradicts the purpose of making MDM mandatory. Option C is also incorrect because enrollment does not depend on whether the device is plugged into power. And D is a misconception. Devices can connect via Wi-Fi during setup, so Ethernet isn't required. In summary, enabling that checkbox guarantees that all devices are enrolled into MDM before the user gets access, enhancing compliance and control. What is the result when a target computer is removed from the scoped smart group after a successful app installer deployment? Select one answer. A. The app is immediately uninstalled. B. The app continues receiving updates. C. The app is frozen at its current version and stops updating. D, the device will be flagged as unqualified. The correct answer is C. The app is frozen at its current version and stops updating. Let's explain that now. When a computer is removed from a smart group that was scoped to an app installer deployment, the app does not get uninstalled. Instead, it remains installed on the device but no longer receives any further updates from Jamf Pro. That's why it is considered frozen at its current version. On the other hand, answer A is incorrect because automatic uninstallation does not happen unless specifically configured. Option B is wrong because update delivery only continues for devices still within the scoped group. And D is also incorrect as the unqualified status refers to things like app compatibility or priority issues, not smart group scope changes. So in summary, removing the device from the scope stops future updates but leaves the current app version intact. What are two ways you can add devices to a building or department in Jamf Pro? Select two answers. A, manually editing each device record. B, reinstalling the operating system on each device. C, configuring a pre-stage enrollment with building assignment. D, using mass action from a device search result. The correct answers are A, manually editing each device record, and D, using mass action from a device search result. Let's walk through the explanation. Manually editing each device record is a straightforward method where an administrator directly modifies an individual device's information to assign it to a specific building or department. This can be useful for smaller environments or when only a few devices need updating. Now, using mass action from a device search result is more efficient when dealing with multiple devices. From the device search view, you can select several records and apply changes to building or department fields all at once, which saves time and ensures consistency across updates. On the other hand, reinstalling the operating system is unrelated to department assignment and is not needed for this purpose. Similarly, pre-stage enrollment configurations focus on automating device setup workflows and do not directly assign buildings or departments post-enrollment. So to sum it up, use manual edits for precision and mass actions for efficiency when managing device assignments in Jamf Pro. What happens immediately after selecting Assign to Server for devices in Apple Business Manager? Select one answer. A, devices are automatically enrolled in MDM. B, devices are listed in a new activity. C, devices skip Setup Assistant. D, devices are removed from Apple Business Manager. Correct answer. Devices are listed in a new activity. Here's why this is the right answer. Apple Business Manager doesn't trigger enrollment the moment you assign a device to a server. Instead, it logs that action by generating a new activity. This is essentially a record saying this device is now linked to this MDM server. Devices are not automatically enrolled in MDM just from the assignment, so A is incorrect. Skipping Setup Assistant depends on MDM configuration, not this step, which rules out C. And D is inaccurate because assigning a server doesn't remove the device from Apple Business Manager. So the immediate outcome is a new activity listing the change. What two conditions must be met for a device to be eligible for automated device enrollment? Select two answers. A, device must run at least iOS 7 or later. B, device must be assigned an Apple ID. C, device must be purchased from a third-party repair vendor. D, device must be purchased from Apple or an authorized reseller. Correct answers. A, device must run at least iOS 7 or later. And D, device must be purchased from Apple or an authorized reseller. Price. Let's break down the reasoning behind these answers. To be eligible for automated device enrollment, a device must be running at least iOS 7 or later. This is the minimum operating system version supported by Apple for enrollment through this method. In addition, the device must come directly from Apple or an authorized reseller. That's because only purchases from recognized channels are automatically registered in Apple Business Manager or Apple School Manager. On the other hand, assigning an Apple ID is not a requirement. Institutions often use managed Apple IDs instead. Similarly, third-party repair vendors are not supported enrollment channels, so devices from them wouldn't qualify. Altogether, these two correct conditions ensure a device is recognized by Apple for automatic enrollment during setup. Which Jamf Pro enrollment method does not support MDM enabling a user on macOS 11 Plus if account creation is skipped? Select one answer. A, user-initiated enrollment. B, Setup Assistant. C, manual MDM profile installation. D, pre-stage enrollment with skip account creation. D, pre-stage enrollment with skip account creation. Now let's unpack why this answer is the right one. When you use pre-stage enrollment and choose to skip account creation during Setup Assistant, Jamf Pro is unable to MDM enable a user. This is because no user account is created at that stage, and MDM enablement requires a user to be present during setup. On the other hand, user-initiated enrollment enables the logged-in user by default since they are already present when enrollment occurs. Similarly, the Setup Assistant does support MDM enabling users as part of the guided process. Manual MDM profile installation isn't a relevant method for user enablement in this context and is mostly considered outside modern automated workflows. So, skipping account creation during pre-stage means no user is tied to MDM, which is why this method does not support MDM enabling on macOS 11 or later. You're tasked with installing essential security profiles on Macs before users complete Setup Assistant. How should this be implemented? Select one answer. A, attach profiles in the Configuration Profiles pane in pre-stage. B, add profiles in Jamf Pro after enrollment. C, use policies with custom triggers. D, require users to install them manually post-enrollment. Correct answer, A, attach profiles in the Configuration Profiles pane in pre-stage. Now let's break down the reasoning behind this choice. Attaching profiles in the Configuration Profiles pane in pre-stage ensures that these essential security configurations are installed during automated device enrollment and before the user completes Setup Assistant. This provides a seamless and secure experience right from the start. Adding profiles in Jamf Pro after enrollment, however, delays the application of these policies until after Setup Assistant has completed, which may create a security gap. Using policies with custom triggers might sound flexible, but such policies don't execute during Setup Assistant, making them ineffective for pre-enrollment configuration. Requiring users to install the profiles manually post-enrollment defeats the core principle of automated device management. It also introduces inconsistency and user error. Therefore, for early enforcement of critical settings, pre-stage configuration profiles is the best approach. Which action is required if the enrollment portal was accessed through an invitation with require login disabled? Select one answer. A, user must log in with a managed Apple ID. B, user will not be prompted to assign a user. C, user must upload an identity certificate. User must use Safari in incognito mode. Correct answer, B, user will not be prompted to assign a user. Here's the reasoning behind that answer. When require login is disabled in a Jamf Pro invitation, the user authentication step is bypassed entirely. That means the system skips any prompts asking the user to assign themselves to the device. This is useful in environments where user assignment isn't necessary or is handled later by admins. On the other hand, requiring the user to log in with a managed Apple ID is only relevant in account-driven enrollments, not enrollment through URL-based invitations. Similarly, uploading an identity certificate is not part of the standard process unless specifically configured, which this scenario does not mention. Finally, while Safari is typically used for mobile enrollment, there's no requirement to use it in incognito mode. That detail has no bearing on the login prompt behavior. So, once again, the right answer is that the user will not be prompted to assign a user. Which two conditions must be met for automated device enrollment to work? Select two answers. A, device must be connected to Wi-Fi during Setup Assistant. B, device must be purchased through ABM. C, device must be already assigned to a user in Jamf. D, the MDM profile must be set as optional. Correct answers. A, device must be connected to Wi-Fi during Setup Assistant. And B, device must be purchased through ABM ASM. Now let's break down why these are the right choices. Automated device enrollment depends heavily on internet connectivity because the device must communicate with Apple's deployment servers during Setup Assistant. Therefore, being connected to Wi-Fi at that stage is absolutely necessary for the enrollment process to trigger. In addition, the device must have been purchased through Apple Business Manager or Apple School Manager. This is how the device becomes eligible to participate in automated device enrollment and to be assigned to your Jamf Pro server. On the other hand, assigning a user in Jamf is not a prerequisite for enrollment. That step typically occurs after the device is enrolled. Similarly, the MDM profile should not be set as optional if you want to guarantee enrollment. Making it optional allows users to skip it, which defeats the purpose of enforcing management. So again, for automated device enrollment to work, the device must connect to Wi-Fi during Setup Assistant, and it must be purchased through ABM or ASM. Which requirement must be met for the download and install updates remote command to run on Macs with Apple Silicon without user interaction? Select one answer. A. File vault must be disabled. B. Bootstrap token must be escrowed. C. SSH must be enabled. D. The device must be on the latest patch version. Correct answer, B. Bootstrap token must be escrowed. Now let's walk through the reasoning behind this answer. The download and install updates remote command on Apple Silicon Macs requires a Bootstrap token to be escrowed. This token gives Jamf Pro the secure capability to perform updates without needing user input, which is critical when automating updates across managed devices. In contrast, disabling File Vault is not necessary for the update process to succeed. Although File Vault controls disk encryption, it has no bearing on update permissions. Similarly, enabling SSH is irrelevant here because the command does not depend on remote terminal access. Lastly, being on the latest patch version is not a requirement to initiate an update. In fact, the purpose of this command is to apply those pending updates. So again, the key requirement is that the Bootstrap token must be escrowed to allow silent, user-free updates on Apple Silicon Macs. Which variable will automatically insert the name of the app that must be closed before installation during a grace period message? Select one answer. A. Delay minutes. B. App or names. C. Software title. D. User message. Correct answer? Now let's break down why app names is the correct choice. The app names variable is used in Jamf Pro to dynamically insert the name of the application that must be closed before installation can proceed during a grace period. This makes the message more contextual and clear to the user, ensuring they know exactly which app needs to be closed. On the other hand, delay minutes only shows the countdown before the app auto-quits, which doesn't provide any information about which app is affected. $software title refers to the name of the software being installed, which could differ from the currently running app that needs to quit. And user message is not a valid predefined variable in Jamf, so it won't function as expected. Therefore, to personalize and clarify the grace period prompt, app names is the correct variable to use. Which of the following is true about network and mobile accounts in Jamf Pro? Select one answer. A. They cannot be MDM enabled. B. They require self-service to enable MDM. C. They are MDM enabled by default. D. They require agent-based enrollment. Correct answer, C. They are MDM enabled by default. Now let's break down why this is the right answer. Network and mobile accounts are automatically MDM enabled when a device is enrolled into Jamf Pro, no matter the enrollment method used. This means they're already managed without needing additional configuration or user action. On the contrary, the idea that they cannot be MDM enabled is false because they are in fact supported natively. Requiring self-service to enable MDM only applies to local accounts in specific macOS versions, not to network or mobile accounts. Lastly, agent-based enrollment is not necessary for these account types to gain MDM control, making it irrelevant in this scenario. So, the truth is simple and straightforward. They are MDM enabled by default. Your organization uses Jamf Pro and Apple Business Manager to automate device deployment. You notice an automated device enrollment token has expired, and you're about to upload a new one. What must you do to renew the instance without causing issues? Select one answer. A. Upload the new server token to the existing instance without deleting it. B. Delete the expired instance and create a new one before uploading the token. C. Download a new public key and upload it before getting the new token. D. Use Apple Configurator to manually reassign all devices. Correct answer, A. Upload the new server token to the existing instance without deleting it. Now let's walk through the reasoning behind this answer. Jamf Pro advises that the most seamless and recommended approach is to upload the new server token to the same existing instance. This action preserves the instance configuration and device associations, avoiding any service disruptions. On the other hand, deleting the expired instance and recreating it would sever all device links and require reconfiguration, which is risky and inefficient. Similarly, downloading new public key is typically unnecessary unless specifically required during the token renewal process. As for using Apple Configurator, that step is only relevant when devices are removed entirely, not simply unassigned. So the best way to ensure uninterrupted deployment is to upload the new token to the current instance without deleting it. You are troubleshooting Jamf management on a macOS device and need to verify which binary handles most Jamf Pro tasks. Which path should you check? Select one answer. A. usr/local//jamf. B. usr/local/bin/jamf. C. Library application support -jamf.app. D. Libraries launch daemons com.jamfsoftware.task.1 plist. Correct answer B. us/bin jamf. Let's break down the reasoning behind this answer. The binary located at usr/local/jamf/jamf is the actual executable responsible for running the majority of Jamf Pro management commands on macOS. It is the core component used when executing policies, performing recon, and enforcing MDM commands via the terminal. In contrast, usr/local/bin jamf is merely a symbolic link that redirects to the real binary. While it can be used, it's not the file you check when you want to directly verify the source. Meanwhile, Library Application Support's jamf.app is an application bundle that may include useful tools but not the main executable itself. Finally, library launch daemons com.jamfsoftware.task.1.plist is related to scheduling system-level check-ins and doesn't directly handle Jamf commands. So when troubleshooting Jamf on macOS, the true path to inspect is uslocal/jamf bin/jamf. An admin is building a smart group and wants to include only devices that updated their inventory less than 14 days ago. Which operator should they use? Select one answer. A. After, YYWEM to D. B. Less than X days ago. C. Greater than or equal D matches regex. Correct answer B. Less than X days ago. Now let's explore why this is the correct choice. The operator less than X days ago is specifically designed to dynamically filter events or device actions that occurred within a set number of days. In this scenario, the admin wants to target devices with recent inventory updates, specifically within the past 14 days. This operator allows Jamf Pro to automatically compare each device's last inventory update date against the current date. By contrast, the option after YYYYD would require the admin to input a fixed date manually, which doesn't adjust automatically with time. Meanwhile, greater than or equal is commonly used for numeric values, such as version numbers, not dates. Lastly, matches regex is a text matching function that doesn't apply to time-based filters at all. Therefore, to ensure that the smart group remains current and always includes devices updated in the last 14 days, less than X days ago is the most appropriate and efficient choice. A supervised iPhone running iOS 18.4 has been locked and left unused for several days. What happens automatically if the new default behavior is not changed? Select one answer. A. The device factory resets itself. B. The device automatically restarts. C. The device sends its last known location. D. The device disables all apps. Correct answer B. The device automatically restarts. Now let's unpack the reasoning behind this answer. With iOS 18.4 and iPadOS 18.4, Apple introduced a new MDM-driven behavior where supervised devices that have been locked and left idle for an extended period will automatically restart. This is intended to keep such devices responsive and help recover from states where a device might become unresponsive due to inactivity. On the other hand, factory reset is not part of this feature. Devices are not wiped. Instead, they simply reboot. Sending the last known location is a function associated with lost mode, not inactivity. And disabling apps is not a mechanism used during inactivity or idle behavior. So the most accurate description of this automatic behavior is that the device restarts itself, not resets or disables anything. A Jamf admin configured apps to install via self-service. They now want to update those apps silently without user intervention. What should they configure next? Select one answer. A. Enable automatically update apps installed via self-service. B. Select force update all managed apps. C. Disable the app and re-add it. D. Rescope the app to all devices. Correct answer, A. Enable automatically update apps installed via self-service. Now, let's go over why this answer is the best option. When apps are deployed via self-service, enabling the option to automatically update apps installed via self-service allows those apps to be updated silently without requiring the user to initiate or approve the update. This setting is essential for ensuring that devices stay up to date with minimal disruption. In contrast, selecting Force Update All Managed Apps only pushes a one-time update and doesn't guarantee future updates will be applied automatically. Disabling and re-adding the app removes it from availability and resets its configuration, which is unnecessary and counterproductive. Finally, rescoping an app affects who gets it but does not enable or configure background update behavior. So for ongoing silent updates of apps deployed via self-service, enabling that automatic update setting is the right move. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. Using latest version based on device eligibility ensures each device installs the newest version it supports. True. If a device is turned off when a managed software update plan is sent, it receives the update as soon as it's powered on and connected. True. The managed software updates feature does not use Apple Push Notification Service. False. Devices can apply managed software updates without being connected to the internet. Now let's walk through the reasoning behind each answer. The first statement is true. The latest version based on device eligibility setting evaluates a device's compatibility and ensures it receives the latest supported version, which avoids pushing unsupported updates. Moving on, the second statement is also true. If the update plan is sent while the device is powered off, the update will still apply once the device is back online and connected to the internet. However, the third statement is false. Managed software updates do depend on Apple Push Notification Service, or APNs, to initiate and coordinate update commands remotely. Lastly, the fourth statement is also false. Devices must be connected to the internet to receive, and apply managed software updates, since those updates and commands come through Apple's infrastructure. So overall, we have 2 true statements and 2 false, based on how managed software updates function within Jamf Pro. What does the not member of operator help you identify? A. Devices not in a specific static or smart group. B. Devices that do not contain a certain app. C. Devices that have an outdated OS. D. Devices that were manually enrolled. Correct answer, A. Devices not in a specific static or smart group. Now let's unpack why that's the right choice. The not member of operator is specifically designed to filter out devices that aren't included in a given static or smart group. For example, if you're managing deployment phases, you could use this to isolate devices that have not yet moved into a target group. In contrast, B refers to app presence, which would typically use a does not have operator. Similarly, C would require OS version comparison operators, like not current or version number checks. Lastly, D speaks to enrollment methods, which are handled through different criteria altogether. So the most accurate interpretation of the not member of operator is identifying devices excluded from a specific group. An administrator wants to automatically display each iPad's serial number on its lock screen using configuration profiles. How should they configure this? Select one answer. A. Use the asset tag variable in the lock screen payload. B. Use the serial number variable in the lock screen payload. C. Manually type each serial number into the asset tag field. D. Create a smart group for every serial number. Correct answer, B. Use the serial number variable in the lock screen payload. Now let's break down the logic behind this answer. The serial number variable is a dynamic payload variable supported in configuration profiles. When used in the lock screen payload, it automatically pulls and displays the serial number specific to each device. This eliminates manual input and scales effortlessly across your fleet. Conversely, the asset tag variable refers to a different data field and wouldn't meet the goal of displaying serial numbers. Manually typing serial numbers into the asset tag field is not only time-consuming but entirely unnecessary with variable support. And finally, creating smart groups for every serial number would be extremely inefficient and unrelated to the lock screen display functionality. So, using serial number in the payload is the most streamlined and scalable approach. If your environment uses shared iPad, what additional management information can you view? Select one answer. A. list of users currently signed in. B, Wi-Fi MAC address history. C, list of configuration profiles per user. D, daily usage statistics. Correct answer, C, list of configuration profiles per user. Now let's explore why this is the correct answer. Shared iPad environments are designed to support multiple users on a single device. One unique feature Jamf Pro offers in these environments is the ability to view configuration profiles on a per-user basis. This means administrators can manage settings that apply specifically to each user's session, enhancing both personalization and control. In contrast, the list of users currently signed in is not part of the management data you see in Jamf Pro. It's visible in other areas, like the login screen or user interface on the device itself. Similarly, Jamf Pro does not collect Wi-Fi MAC address history tied to individual users. And as for daily usage statistics, Jamf does not provide this level of analytics in the Management tab. Therefore, the most accurate and helpful data point Jamf offers for shared iPad management is the configuration profiles associated with each user. An admin tries to assign a book directly to a supervised device using device-assigned managed distribution, but it fails. Why? Select one answer. A, books can only be distributed via user-assigned managed distribution. B, the device was not supervised correctly. C, the book license expired. D, books must be deployed via self-service only. Correct answer. A, books can only be distributed via user-assigned managed distribution is from Usher. Now let's understand the reasoning behind this answer. In Jamf Pro, books are only eligible for user-assigned managed distribution, meaning the system must associate a book license with an Apple ID or a managed Apple ID rather than with the device itself. This differs from apps, which can be either device-assigned or user-assigned. As a result, trying to distribute a book directly to a device will always fail regardless of its supervision status. Moreover, device supervision has no effect on this limitation. Likewise, book license expiration is irrelevant here because no such issue is mentioned, and deployment via self-service is not required unless specific deployment conditions are unmet. So the core issue is not a misconfiguration or missing license, but the distribution method itself. Books simply cannot be device-assigned in Jamf Pro. What is the main app used to view and modify preferences on iOS and iPadOS? Select one answer. A, Control Center. B, Finder. C, Settings. D, App Store. Correct answer, Settings. Now let's break down the reasoning behind this answer. The Settings app is the primary interface users rely on to adjust preferences, system behavior, and manage various configurations on both iOS and iPadOS. Whether it's configuring Wi-Fi, notifications, privacy settings, or installing configuration profiles, all of this happens inside the Settings app. In contrast, Control Center only offers quick toggles for features like Bluetooth or screen brightness, but doesn't allow in-depth configuration. Finder, on the other hand, is exclusive to macOS and doesn't exist on iOS or iPadOS devices. Meanwhile, the App Store is used for discovering and downloading apps, not for modifying system preferences. So, anytime you need to tweak how an iPad or iPhone behaves, you head straight to the Settings app. Which iOS, iPadOS section allows admins to enforce biometric and passcode rules? One answer. A, Face ID and passcode, Touch ID and passcode. B, Safari. C, battery. D, accessibility. Correct answer. A, Face ID and passcode, Touch ID and passcode. Now let's explore why this answer is the right one. The Face ID and passcode or Touch ID and passcode section in iOS and iPadOS is where admins can enforce biometric authentication and passcode requirements. This includes settings like requiring a passcode after a set amount of idle time or mandating biometric authentication to unlock a device. Meanwhile, Safari is strictly for configuring browser-related preferences, which has nothing to do with device security. Battery gives you insights into power usage, but again, it doesn't allow any enforcement of passcode or biometric policies. Lastly, accessibility is intended to help users with visual, auditory, or physical challenges and does not control security parameters. So if you need to apply security standards across devices, this is the exact section where you'd go. Which password policy setting allows a locked Jamf Pro user to regain access without administrator help? Select one answer. A, enable unlock by email. B, enable forced password rotation. C, enable password reuse. D, enable read-only fallback access. Correct answer. A. Enable unlock by email. Now let's look at why this answer is the correct one. The option enable unlock by email allows a Jamf Pro user who's been locked out of their account to receive a password reset link via their registered email address. This eliminates the need for administrator intervention and is especially helpful in large organizations where IT support might not be immediately available. On the other hand, enable forced password rotation is a compliance feature that ensures users regularly change their passwords, but it doesn't help with account recovery. Enable password reuse lowers security by allowing repeated use of old passwords and doesn't assist with unlocking. Finally, enable read-only fallback access isn't even a recognized Jamf feature, so it offers no benefit in this context. So if your goal is to empower users to self-restore access securely, enabling unlock by email is the way to go. When creating a static group in Jamf Pro, what must you do to select multiple computers or devices efficiently? Select one answer. A. Use the checkbox to select all desired computers or devices. B. Hold Control and click on each computer manually. C. Use drag and drop into the group panel. D. Upload a CSV file of serial numbers. Correct answer. A. Use the checkbox to select all desired computers or devices. Now let's break down the reasoning behind this answer. Using the checkbox to select all desired computers or devices is the most efficient method in Jamf Pro when assigning members to a static group. It allows admins to select multiple entries in one go without having to click through each individually, making the process much faster and user-friendly. Conversely, holding Control and clicking on each device manually is time-consuming and unnecessary since Jamf provides a bulk select option. Drag and drop may seem intuitive, but Jamf Pro does not support this method for assigning devices to groups. Uploading a CSV file is useful for importing devices, but not for directly assigning them to a static group during group creation. So if you're trying to be efficient while building a static group, always use the checkbox to batch select devices. You need to notify all mobile users about a system-wide update using a mass action. Which condition must be met for the notification to be delivered? Select one answer. A. All users must be members of a static group. B. The devices must have Jamf self-service for iOS installed. C. The devices must have Bluetooth enabled. D. The users must be logged in using managed Apple IDs. Correct answer, B. The devices must have Jamf self-service for iOS installed. Now let's go into the reasoning behind this answer. Mass notifications in Jamf Pro are sent through the Jamf self-service app on iOS. Without this app installed on the target devices, the notification cannot be delivered, regardless of the user's group or login method. Although being in a static group might help with targeting devices, it's not a delivery requirement. Likewise, Bluetooth doesn't play any role in the mass notification system, so enabling it won't impact the message. Managed Apple IDs are useful in other workflows, but they are not essential for sending out system-wide messages through mass action. So, to ensure your notification reaches every intended user, just make sure Jamf self-service for iOS is installed on their devices. Which two distribution options are available when deploying a mobile device configuration profile? Select two answers. A. Install automatically without user interaction. B. Install manually via terminal. C. Make available in Jamf self-service. D. Send as a .mobile config email attachment. Correct answers. A. Install automatically without user interaction. C. Make available in Jamf self-service. Let's unpack why these are the correct answers. When deploying mobile device configuration profiles with Jamf Pro, you typically want to automate or streamline the user experience. The first correct option, installing automatically without user interaction, enables silent deployment of profiles, which is ideal in large-scale environments where user prompts are undesirable. Equally valid is making profiles available in Jamf self-service. This option allows users to install configurations on demand, giving flexibility while still maintaining control. On the other hand, installing via terminal is not a supported method for mobile device profiles in Jamf. Likewise, sending configuration profiles through email as .mobile config files isn't part of the Jamf deployment workflow and lacks the centralized management Jamf Pro offers. So for efficiency and best practices, use automatic silent installs or self-service deployment. A school IT administrator is deploying new iPads running iPadOS 18.4. She wants to enforce the latest software update policies and prevent the use of predictive code in Xcode during student development courses. Select two answers. A. Use the software update restriction available for iPadOS 18.4. B. Add the new Xcode restriction to block predictive code completion. C. Use Apple Configurator to remove Xcode manually. D. Set up Wi-Fi restrictions to control student activity. Correct answers. A. Use the software update restriction available for iPadOS 18.4. B. Add the new Xcode restriction to block predictive code completion. Now let's break down why these two answers are correct. To begin with, using the software update restriction available for iPadOS 18.4 ensures that student iPads remain compliant with the latest enforced policies. This is important for both feature consistency and security enforcement in an educational setting. Furthermore, adding the new Xcode restriction to block predictive code completion directly targets the goal of managing how students interact with development tools. Apple has introduced a restriction key specifically for this purpose, enabling educators to ensure a more manual and disciplined coding experience. Meanwhile, using Apple Configurator to remove Xcode manually might work in isolated cases, but it doesn't scale or enforce long-term policy across multiple devices. Similarly, setting up Wi-Fi restrictions would not prevent the use of predictive features inside an app like Xcode, so it's irrelevant in this context. Altogether, configuration profiles with the correct restrictions provide both control and automation needed in classroom device management. What can you achieve with the scripts payload in a policy? Select two answers. A. Schedule Apple software updates. B. Run scripts before or after other tasks. C. Set kernel cache rebuild options. D. Pass custom parameters to scripts. Correct answers. B. Run scripts before or after other tasks. D. Pass custom parameters to scripts. Now let's break it down and explain. The scripts payload in a Jamf Pro policy is designed to give you precise control over when and how scripts are executed. First, it allows you to run scripts either before or after other policy tasks, such as package installations or restarts. This flexibility ensures that dependencies and setup steps are executed in the correct order. In addition, the payload supports passing custom parameters to your scripts. These parameters help tailor the script's behavior based on specific needs or conditions during policy execution. For instance, you might pass a username, file path, or a specific flag that controls what the script does. However, scheduling Apple software updates is handled through the software updates payload, not the scripts payload. Similarly, kernel cache rebuild options belong to the restart options payload, not scripting. In summary, the scripts payload is all about execution timing and dynamic control using parameters, which makes it a powerful part of any Jamf Pro policy strategy. An administrator creates a policy to deploy a script that updates a user profile after account creation. What should they set as the script priority? A. At reboot. B. After C. Before. D. Default. Correct answer, B. After. Let's explain why. When deploying a script intended to update a user profile, the timing of script execution is critical. By setting the script priority to after, the administrator ensures that the script runs only after the user account has been successfully created. This is essential because attempting to update a profile before the account exists would result in a failed script. Now, looking at the other options, at reboot is not a recognized script priority in Jamf Pro, so it has no valid effect in this context. The before option would execute the script prior to the account being set up, which leads to failure because the script would target something that doesn't yet exist. Lastly, default is not an actual script priority setting and therefore wouldn't be applicable here. So for any task that depends on the successful creation of a user account, setting the priority to after guarantees proper sequencing and successful execution. For each statement below, indicate whether the answer is true or false. The ongoing execution frequency combined with recurring check-in can cause a policy to run every 15 minutes. Answer, true. Jamf Pro automatically disables policies with ongoing execution that install a package and target all devices. Self-service policies must always include user interaction messages. Answer, false chat. Each Jamf Pro user must manually enable dashboard widgets for policies they wish to monitor. Answer: true. Let's go ahead and explain. To begin with, the combination of ongoing execution frequency and recurring check-in indeed causes Jamf to run the policy every 15 minutes by default. This is a common configuration for continuous monitoring, but can result in performance issues if not controlled. Next, Jamf Pro does automatically disable policies with ongoing execution that install a package and target all devices. This safeguard ensures the policy doesn't repeatedly install large payloads across all devices, preserving system and network stability. Now, regarding self-service policies, user interaction messages are not mandatory. Although they can be used to communicate with the end user, policies in self-service can function perfectly well without them. Finally, every Jamf Pro user must manually enable dashboard widgets for the policies they want to monitor. This setting is user-specific, so it doesn't carry over to others by default. So, that's the breakdown for all four statements. Which of the following is a feature exclusive to Self-Service Plus? Select one answer. A. Running policies. B. Browsing bookmarks. C. Displaying Jamf Protect Security Dashboard. D. Installing configuration profiles. Correct answer, C. Displaying Jamf Protect Security Dashboard. Now let's go ahead and explain. Self-Service Plus includes enhanced features beyond what traditional self-service offers. One such exclusive feature is the ability to display the Jamf Protect Security Dashboard. This dashboard provides users with visibility into their device's security posture when Jamf Protect is installed, something not available in the classic version. In contrast, running policies is supported by both Self-Service and Self-Service Plus. Similarly, browsing bookmarks is a standard feature accessible in both platforms. Lastly, installing configuration profiles is not exclusive either, as it is a core function supported by both tools. Therefore, the unique differentiator for Self-Service Plus is its integration with Jamf Protect's security dashboard. What is the primary purpose of the /bin bash line at the beginning of a script? Select one answer. A. It formats the output. B. It runs the script silently. C. It specifies the shell interpreter. D. It grants execution permission. Correct answer, C. It specifies the shell interpreter. Now let's go ahead and explain. The line /bin bash is known as a shebang. It tells the system which interpreter to use when executing the script. In this case, it directs the system to use the bash shell. This is important because scripts can be written in different shell languages, and the system needs to know which one to apply. On the other hand, formatting the output is handled by commands like echo, not the shebang line. Running the script silently depends on how the script is written, not on the interpreter declaration. Finally, execution permission is not granted by the shebang either. That's done using the chmod command, stuff such as chmod-script.sh. So the key function of /bin bash is to tell the system to run the script using the bash shell interpreter. Why can't a user delete the calendar app from macOS? Select one answer. A. The user doesn't have administrator rights. B. It resides in a read-only data volume. C. System integrity protection blocks modifications. D. It's part of the shared directory. Correct answer, C. System integrity protection blocks modifications. Now let's explain. System Integrity Protection, or SIP, is a security feature in macOS designed to prevent unauthorized changes to system files and apps. It protects critical system applications like the calendar app, making them undeletable even by users with administrator privileges. Option A is incorrect, because even an admin cannot remove protected apps due to SIP. Option B sounds plausible, but the data volume where system apps reside is protected by SIP, not just marked read-only. Option D, the shared directory, is for user-shared files and does not affect the location or protection status of system apps like Calendar. Therefore, the reason a user cannot delete the Calendar app is because System Integrity Protection blocks modifications.